The Around the NFL podcast. Can't fight this feeling anymore.
Welcome back to another edition of the Around the NFL podcast. My name is Dan Hanzus, and I am joined by a room filled with heroes. Marc Sessler, Chris Wesseling, and Gregg Rosenthal. What is up, boys?
Hey, Dan. How are you?
Are you a Speedwagon, Wes? That must be bringing you back to your days at the old junior high.
No, that was way before my junior high.
Well, what does Matt Money Smith have to do to get a laugh or a smile out of you two guys in the morning? I mean, he's out there bearing his soul.
The old consternation corner over here.
Hey, look, I'm not going to do some fake smile. Who do you think I am, Cam Newton in the pre-draft process?
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
Fireballs.
Bob McGinn heat.
Listen, I'll laugh when I feel like it.
No, wait, that was Nolan Naraki.
Yeah, Nolan Naraki.
That's my fault.
Nolan Naraki, the most hated man on the internet. Welcome to the Around the NFL podcast. You know, we are getting close, gentlemen. It is Wednesday, September 2nd, at the time of taping. 8 days away from football that matters. And you know that it's getting serious when Greg gets a haircut. Did you get it from the makeup room, or did you actually pay for it?
I paid for this one.
There you go.
Your good friend Camille.
Yeah, my boy Camille.
We've already, I didn't have a word of conversation between us the whole time. I didn't even. When you go there, do you tell him what to do, or you just sit down and he cuts your hair? I didn't even say anything.
I pointed a picture of one of he cut what Camille does. Camille's a barber on Sepulveda here in Culver City that many of us use.
Not me.
We point. He cuts out pictures out of magazines and pastes them on his hair.
I don't do that.
And then sometimes if you don't say anything, he'll give you the regular.
Sure. Yeah,
But, I like to point out one of the hotties on the mirror and say something like that. He's like, okay.
Yeah. Hey, there's Josh Hartnett in 1997. Let's get him.
I like
Here's
the
Josh
idea.
Hartnett from the set of Pearl Harbor.
I like not having to talk to
I
a
love
barber
it.
at all.
Oh, I love it.
I don't like the pressure of how you doing? I don't. They don't care, and I don't care. I might care, but generally.
That's why I go back there instead of your bro-tastic place where they serve you a drink and this phony nonsense with some guy. I mean, Camille and I, we're on the same wavelength. Play a little classical music,
By the way,
some hymns in the background sometimes.
You should listen, the boss. You should show some respect because you wouldn't even know about Camille if not for me.
That's true.
I did try out one of those fancy places that give you a drink. But then it was like a hipster from, Echo Park talking to me too much. And I was like, enough of this. And I went back to Camille, keeps it tight.
Life's too short for hipster haircuts.
Exactly. All right,
Greg
here we
didn't
go.
get his haircut over there at the makeup room, but there was some drama.
What?
Maurice Jones-Drew was badgering Greg about not loving football enough.
Well, he was just saying in general this entire news organization needs to love football a little more. So I stuck up for, us as football heads and lovers and said, you can't. Don't come to us.
He asked at one time how you learned about football. Was it like somebody being taught math and science?
It's a fair question.
Well, that is we didn't play, most of us, for many years. Some of us played. The three of you didn't play. I played.
Do you feel more qualified having played backup center in 1988?
I think it shows. You've been in a huddle. You've been to the pressure of a 2-minute drill.
I don't see that showing up in your analysis too often.
Well, that's poor analysis on your part.
We need to get MJD in here at some point because he has brought a little energy to the NFL media conglomerate.
I love it.
Mark, yesterday, he ducked his head into the newsroom and said what?
Well, he came around grilling various, bewildered figures with a camera behind him, like, your favorite team, can you go to the Super Bowl? And then he came to Dan and I, and he got very tough on us about the Browns and the Jets.
Right, but then after he walked away...
as he was leaving, he announced a ping pong tournament for the entire newsroom, and we better be good if we want to play with him, apparently. So he means business.
That's my kind of party.
So that's what's happening.
He's on your list, though. He wants Ray Farmer fired immediately, if not sooner.
That doesn't get on my list. I want to hear about his analysis when he says that. Feels kind of warmed over.
All right.
Let's have a chat about it.
So here we go. Big show today coming up 8 days away from the start of the regular season. We're going to hit our NFC preview. Division by division, team by team. We're going to hit all 16. On Friday, we'll turn our attention to the AFC. But today is the National Football Conference. We're going to then pick our division winners as part of this exercise and our wild card teams. Haba.
That's how it works.
We're going to check in on the latest episode of Hard Knocks, the penultimate episode of Hard Knocks Season 10 with the Houston Texans, another entertaining show. And then we will do some news, as we always do. So that feels like a good show.
It's stacked.
Stacked show, and every show from now until Thursday will be stacked. We have so much good stuff to get to. This is the fun stuff. This is why you lift all them weights.
All right, Dan.
That was Gandhi. That's his quote. All right, before we get to the news, we'll check now behind the glass. He is a man. He has a headset. We don't. His name is TD.
What is going on, guys? I love the idea of MJD as the new around the NFL villain. I like that.
I don't know. He's not a villain. We're not playing him as a villain. You always immediately get negative. That's what he was speaking against.
I'm sorry. I love heat. Oh, so you and I, all of you guys, we have very different barbershop experiences, clearly.
What's going on? What's your shop experience?
You got to talk to your barber, man. Talk about what's
well, it depends.
games, latest movies.
That's cultural.
You know,
Don't you have friends you can talk to that about?
Yeah.
You know, MJD is kind of like a worthy foil. I look at him that way. He'll be a fun guy to mix it up with.
Sure.
Let's get him in here.
Let's do some news.
That's 2 sacks. 10 men, the quarterback.
The great bully, Brian Cushing, right there from Hard Knocks, episode 2. Cush grew up in Park Ridge, New Jersey, by the way, right over the border from Pearl River, New York, the old Zeusers' hometown.
I see some shared DNA.
I kind of do. There is that sort of New York-y, jock. You and Cushing.
Total.
You spell better than he does.
All right, let's do some news. We'll start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not often do the Jacksonville Jaguars lead our news, so it's usually not a good thing. Julius Thomas, their high-priced tight end, they signed to a huge deal in the offseason to really lift their offense to a different level. We knew that he had this finger issue. He hurt himself in the first game of the preseason. It's going to cost him a significant amount of time, about a month. He's going to need surgery after having a second consultation with a doctor on Tuesday. Marc Sessler out of the picture. How big a setback is this for Blake Bortles, who needs weapons to grow in year 2?
I think it's a big setback out of the gate. I mean, we've seen another nice preseason from Blake Bortles. He's grown, and they went out and got Julius Thomas to be his go-to target, a friendly tight end that he can use. I look at this team and the bad luck that happens to teams that can't get out of the basement. You look back at what happened with Justin Blackmon. Imagine an offense where Blake Bortles comes in, and this season you've got Justin Blackmon and Julius Thomas. Instead, you got neither. Allen Robinson's probably your number one target.
Marquise Lee hasn't even seen the field yet.
Yeah.
The OC of the Jaguars called him a albino tiger, Marquise Lee, because he's a guy that if you're lucky when you go to the zoo, you see him peek out of the cave. But a lot of times he's not going to be there, so you have to get lucky to see him on the field.
We have some people like that in our newsroom.
That's fair.
I mean, it's been a brutal offseason for the Jaguars. They lose the number 3 pick in the draft, Dante Fowler. They lose Julius Thomas. I mean, those are the 2 guys along with Bortles that the fans are probably most excited about. And you mentioned Bortles looking good. He's Mr. August at this point. He's proven he can take care of the preseason. He looked great again, but now I'm looking forward to the regular season.
All right, so here's some good news, Jaguars fans. Your owner announced that you'll be playing games in London through 2030, potentially. Get excited. I don't know. That's all I got.
It's not really a
Why did you call Julius Thomas friendly, by the way? Why is he a friendly
How do you know that? When that young quarterback has their go-to target, tight ends often play that role. Yeah, security blanket.
Florida Times Union called Julius Thomas the best player on the field, and nobody's even close in training camp.
But when I hear friendly, I think personality and whether there's someone that's approachable.
Well, it's about looking at things from more than one layer, Dan.
I can't do that.
That's the issue that we run into here.
Can't do it. Let's hit some a little cuts rundown. There are a lot of cuts going on right now. They're cutting down the rosters. Greg, help me. 90 to 75?
That is right. That's already happened. And then it gets down to 53 by Saturday afternoon, and many of us will be on typing away on Saturday. Get excited.
Yum. Can't wait. Trent Richardson, Marc Sessler, let's talk about it. Let's get right to it.
Right.
Oakland Raiders signed Trent Richardson to a 2-year deal in March, gave him $600,000 in guaranteed money. He has been released. He was among the first cut downs by the team after doing nothing in 3 preseason games, showing none of the bursts that made him once upon a time the number 3 overall pick by your Browns in the 2012 draft. First off, let's start with Greg here. Your thoughts on Richardson. Are we going to see him again in the NFL?
Well, the most amazing thing about this is that, not that he didn't make the team, he was on our list of possible cuts, but that he didn't make it to the 53-man cut down. That he's not even one of those guys that's close to making the team, whereas guys like Tywan Jones, who's not a natural running back, Michael Dyer, George Atkinson, those are all guys that are still on the roster and did make that first cut down.
Here's the recipe to getting cut, by the way, as a running back in the NFL. Average less than 3 yards a carry in multiple carries in the preseason, and don't play special teams. There's no need for you. You don't have a role.
The 3 best transactions involving Trent Richardson are Cleveland trading him for a first-round pick, the Colts finally realizing he's out, and then the Raiders forget the guaranteed money. When you're that bad, you got to go. And every other running back on that roster has shown more than Richardson. And at some point, the experiment is up, and it might be now.
Wes, what went wrong?
The entire football industry whiffed on this guy. Guys respected and analysts like Mike Mayock and Greg Cosell called him
#1 player in the draft.
The #1 player in the draft and the best running back since Adrian Peterson. Somebody like Ryan Grigson, when he trades for him, a respected scout says, this is a great trade. I have no qualms about it. He's going to be awesome. And Jay Glazer, at the time of the draft, called Trent, this is the most bizarre thing to me, called Trent Richardson the most impressive human being I've met in the past 2 draft classes. And there's nothing about Trent Richardson that seems impressive as a human being the last few years. He seems like he has no drive.
Maybe Trent is
commitment.
like investing in Glazer's Tybo classes or something. I don't know.
I don't think Glazer's the type to just throw that out there.
Yeah.
I think he really liked Trent
Richardson had a series of knee operations. They weren't major, but that adds up. And I think the one thing on the field as a player, you look at who he was at Alabama, he is not that guy.
Well,
he's too heavy.
He has a startling lack of vision. When there's a hole, he just doesn't see it, and I don't know how that's fixable.
Reggie McKenzie wasted a lot of money. $600,000 for a signing bonus is a lot for a guy who got cut. I mean, that pays for a lot of Mark Davis tracksuits. You know what I'm saying?
You want to look on the bright side? Only one player in history has a lower yards per carry average. Clark Hinkle, the inimitable Clark Hinkle, played in the 30s and is in the Hall of Fame.
Maybe that's disturbing.
In my experience or sightings of Mark Davis, it's usually white jeans and a white long sleeve T-shirt. But maybe there's a lot of tracksuits.
Oh, there's some track. There's some
Oh,
track.
he's got some track. It's always, always light white colors or stonewash garments. A very interesting character, if you want to put it that way.
Mark, should we settle up right now? Because
I think we should. Well,
let me just set it up. Back in March, after the signing, I was convinced Trent Richardson was awful, and despite getting guaranteed money, he wasn't going to make that team, and he would never see a snap again. Everyone laughed at me. You laughed at me, Mark. Wes, you laughed at me.
I don't remember laughing.
Greg chuckled.
I don't think
But the truth was...
I wasn't involved in this at all.
What is this narrative you've
how
created?
about we let Dan have his moment?
The old Zeuser got it right, because Trent Richardson is not starting the season with the Raiders, and I don't think he's going to see a snap. And Mark, you and I, we had a sandwich on this, a sandwich.
We did. Well, the actual sandwich bet, the reason I took you up was you said he would never play another snap again in the NFL. Forget the Raiders, whether making the Raiders
They still got a chance.
That's right. So the bet is ongoing, but it feels like a good,
proposition.
The wager, the proposition, it feels like a good time to pay up because we're at a pause point where we might not see him till December if some team's in a train wreck and they bring him back. So at this point, I think it's time to give Dan
Do you still take trains to their games?
All right. So you have a sandwich from me right now?
Here's the thing. It's very early while we're taping this. I went to the huddle, the commissary, and I said, listen, can you cook up something that Dan Hanzus would like?
Oh.
And so we'll see what it is.
All right.
Bring it in.
It's some version of a sandwich.
Here's our version of the
Sully!
Sully coming into the studio. Our
Wow.
Price is right girl. Looking good.
Sully, great job. Looks like we got an egg sandwich.
Hash browns.
Ooh, is that some avocado in there?
Well, listen, I said let's keep it a little healthy.
Little hash browns. Oh, this looks delicious. I will savor this. Mark, you're a man of your word.
Hey, are you going to have some? Wes
No, that's too gross.
pants on camera.
I'm going to warm it up.
I will warn you, I purchased it about an hour ago, so it's in a middling
It's congealed.
state at this point.
Mark, you're a man of your word.
Thank you. And if he does play another snap, you're going to be a man of your word.
I will, but I feel pretty confident about this because
Now you're going to have to owe him 2 sandwiches if he does play.
I will. I will give him everything he needs, but 3 teams have now quit on this guy in 3 years. It's over. Come on. All right, let's move on to the Houston Texans Hard Knocks episode 4 on HBO, which stands for what, Wes?
Home box office.
Nailed it. Home run. The second to last episode of the series. This one, Greg, was an episode that showed us, first of all, Vince Wilfork, one of the all-time characters on the show. And every season, I've been writing these for 4 years now for NFL.com, there is a Hard Knocks MVP. What he did, and TD, I don't know if we have this to put on video or on the screen, what he showed up in to work in Tuesday's episode is incredible. They were overalls and a
Overall
cowboy
shorts.
hat and cowboy boots and nothing underneath them at all. Glorious. The best comment from a teammate came from Kareem Jackson, who said, "You had to get that special made. I haven't seen the shorts like that in a while, except for on babies." And this is Vince Wilfork, like 380 pounds.
Right, I love the fact
Nude.
he's listed as 325 pounds. He has got to be over 400.
This was performance art.
Yeah.
I mean, he had everybody rolling. He knows it's a dog days of August. You got to come in and lighten the mood.
Bill O'Brien
He's got the coach dying laughing. This was art.
And that's what I wrote in the recap. I don't know if Vince Wilfork can play anymore. We're very close to the end probably, but just this alone, I get why the Texans would give this guy millions of dollars.
He kind of sneaks up on O'Brien here.
Yeah.
Doesn't even know he's there.
I think after being with the Patriots for a decade, that it's time to let your hair down and have some fun.
Yeah.
Oh, you get locked. You'd be like in Scientology where they put you in a basement and make you scrub the floor for 3 days. That's what would happen if you did that on Patriot Way. Greg, any other takeaways from episode 4 of Hard Knocks?
I thought the moment where Charles James, and this is why Hard Knocks is so great, came in at running back. He's a cornerback who they've tried here and there at running back. Very likable personality. So likable, Aaron Andrews comes up to him before the game and tells him she's a big fan. And they put him in at running back. Let's just try it last couple of minutes of the game. And he busts out a 77-yard touchdown on his first carry. Like, I was genuinely excited. I didn't realize I was genuinely excited. Like my favorite team won the game. They called it back by penalty, but it didn't even
He's
matter.
keeping that ball.
It didn't matter.
He kept the ball, and the funniest moment for me, besides Wilfork dressed as a giant baby, was a slow motion shot of James hoisting up the football in front of Bill O'Brien sitting on the team bus, and then O'Brien giving him the finger and then signaling holding. All this in slow motion for added effect. An incredible episode. And I would say, Wes, did you see the episode?
I saw about the first 35 minutes on my way into work. You can watch it on your phone in the car.
Did you see it?
I did, yeah.
Did you? What was your takeaways from the Ryan Mallett misadventure?
I don't think Ryan Mallett, and you wrote it up perfectly, didn't help himself on this show in general. But it's sort of like a time to come back and own up your mistake. He didn't do that, and I think that's where Bill O'Brien's decision-making to go with Hoyer, maybe he sees Hoyer as a more mature leader.
You saw why some teams, maybe the Patriots and now the Texans going with Hoyer, maybe the things they aren't so sure about Ryan Mallett.
What would you suggest he say to Rick Smith when he was in the office?
Not making any excuses. Beat that out,
right, don't backtrack and try to explain yourself. Sometimes when you just make a mistake, just own up to it. It's
so
that
you just
simple.
walk in and say, I messed up, it will never happen again.
Sure, what's wrong with that?
Say, I messed up. Never. I mean, he went on this long rant about technology.
I bought a new alarm clock.
Right. What are you
Right.
talking about? You're not even mad.
I bought a battery-powered alarm clock. It'll never happen again.
There's
Like
always
Bill O'Brien said, he's 27.
right. Yeah, it's like the parent that's just they're just exacerbated by the kid that is still living at home, and it's like he's 27. He's got to get it together.
You're right. The most head-scratching part was he kept saying, I'm not even mad. Like,
Yeah,
you're the one who messed up. Why would you be mad?
Yeah. And finally, we had Odell Beckham Jr. somehow made his way into the episode. He is the most overexposed professional athlete in this country right now, but I have to hand it to him. Squeezing in a cameo on a show and a training camp that takes place 1,500 miles away, and also plugging the video game franchise for which you are the cover boy. I mean, the guy knows how to market himself.
Plus
Got skills.
Big time interception to win the game at the end.
Pick 6.
Clutch pick 6.
He also gave Charles James heat for letting Eli Manning tackle him on an interception on back. So you let Eli catch you? Anyway, there's our Hard Knocks recap. And that's it for the news. And now it's time to talk about our NFC preview, baby.
Let's get into it.
2015 NFC preview. And we're going to go, this is how we'll do it. Get excited, society. We're going to go division by division, team by team. And each of us will take turns, one guy per team, per division, throwing out a question, a big question, one big question, all caps, facing each team, and then we will discuss. And then it will be informative and mirthy. And we'll start with the NFC East. And there's a lot to get to with the NFC East. Who do we want to start with here?
I think we're starting with Mark.
Start at the bottom.
All right.
Redskins.
Let's do it.
I see major seismic shifts ahead in Washington and our nation's capital because I'm wondering right now, will RG3, who obviously they don't want to play, and Coach Gruden, will they even be around by Christmas? I really wonder if they're both out of here because how does this coach and this owner get along at this point? It's all on the table. I just don't. I see it as a mid-season firing.
I think RG3 will be gone in the next week.
Sure.
Wow.
Do you think they move him?
What do you
How
think
can
they'll
you
get?
how can you take the chance of him getting injured and you have to pay $16 million to him next year?
Well, you don't play him,
He can still get injured on the practice field.
I guess.
Well, people have mentioned that, and that's true. It's possible that could happen, but you would probably have to tear your Achilles or something. It's not that if he's hurt right now; it's if he's not healthy by March. So you're right. I mean, you could risk that he tears his Achilles or tears his ACL on the.
I mean, this could happen at Thanksgiving. He tears his ACL, he tears his MCL, he tears his Achilles.
What about
He
the
busts
toxic?
his shoulder.
Does any team want him though?
Well, but you just release him maybe.
By the way,
you got to move on.
one of the problems that Gruden has is they already have a possible interim head coach in house, Bill Callahan. That just seems like an interim head coach if there ever was one. If they're really getting.
Isn't there an interim head coach on every coaching staff?
Probably, but
He's a good fit,
it helps to have someone like that who's had experience. You're not going to Joe Barry.
I think Gruden's fine now that he's not starting RG3.
Yeah, his team's great.
This is the best decision you could have made. At least give yourself a shot here. Don't go down with the RG3 ship. Wes, your question.
Well, the Eagles, we have them as the favorites. We like their defense. We like their running game. Are we making too much out of Sam Bradford's 10 passes in preseason week 3? Is this guy going to carry them to the division title?
I say no, and not because he looked great in week 3, but because we've seen 2 years of evidence of what Chip Kelly's system can do, and I don't think there's anyone that believes Bradford is less talented than Nick Foles or Mark Sanchez. We've seen the yards they can put up, so why not Bradford?
I say yes. I think he's been amazing, and he deserves all the credit in the world, and people should be optimistic about this offense, but it's not going to be this easy. There's going to be a time where he's going to take a hit, and maybe he won't get back up, or maybe the knee doesn't hold up. You never know. And he'll have struggles. I mean, right now, it seems like he's going to have a 2013 Peyton Manning season. I don't buy that. I don't think he's that good.
No, he's not.
Nobody's going there.
Well, I think a lot of people are all of a sudden getting on the bandwagon that this offense is completely unstoppable, but Sam Bradford is still a guy with a trick knee that's missed the last 2 years.
Here's one thing, though. We can call it as much as any offense in the league as we have a quarterback-proof offense. So now you actually have the best quarterback that Chip Kelly's ever worked with in the NFL. From that angle, I do believe it. I think Bradford is the guy we saw in the preseason because he's in a much better offense. The Rams' offense was always dead on arrival. The question is, 16 games, can he stay healthy? Not someone that's shown us he can do that. And
Questions
that
on the
does
offensive
matter.
line, too. There's definite questions throughout that offensive line that haven't been there in the past. Some changes there. Lane Johnson's been up and down. He's not going to be there all season, so that could be a problem if Bradford gets hit a lot.
This is my question on the New York Giants. Is this the beginning of the end for Tom Coughlin, one of the more celebrated coaches in franchise history? Guy's been around forever now. Like, you don't even realize that he's been around since 2004, but they haven't made the playoffs in recent seasons since that Super Bowl win. A lot of expectation this year with Eli there, with Odell Beckham. I know there's some holes with the defense, but do we believe that this is the last year Tom Coughlin is the coach of the New York Giants?
I think Gregg's fired him 2 Augusts in a row.
Stunner.
I mean, the defense, you said there's some holes. You know, that's like saying the Yankees are somewhat obnoxious. It's like, you know, I don't know. I was just.
I'll let that go because it was so bad.
It was off the cuff. You know, they can't all be winners. Their defense, there's nothing good about their defense. It's one of, on paper, I think the worst 2 or 3 defense in the league. It's a bad sign when your big move in the offseason, the big, hey, this is the move we're making. Let's bring back Steve Spagnuolo. And he's going to just revive our old glory after having a terrible last 7 or 8 years since leaving us. That's all they really did this offseason on defense.
Yeah, I think Coughlin is at the age, too, where if things go completely south this season, he himself may decide he wants to walk out. But the only problem I'd have with just firing him when you still have a year or two, a little bit more of Eli Manning, is Ben McAdoo is building a good offense by all accounts. Going back, switching into a third coordinator in 4 seasons for Manning and starting over. I just don't think it's a good dynamic.
Does anybody think Tom Coughlin is the problem and the reason why the Giants haven't
Not
made the playoffs in
necessarily.
recent years?
No, I don't necessarily.
So why fire him?
Because if you don't make the playoffs, you haven't won 10 wins in a season since 2000. I mean, you've just been mediocre for 5 straight years. If they do it again, then, you know.
I mean, if they go
Carson,
2-14, the GM could go too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there that's been in place for a long time.
My question is about the team that we had in second place in the NFC East. A lot of people have them in first. It's the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think their offense is going to be as good this season, but can their front seven now, which has been rebuilt, turn into a big team strength for them?
Why not? I mean, you love Tyrone Crawford, right?
I do.
You've got Greg Hardy, who will be, what's he, suspended 4 games?
That's right.
Easy guy to root for, too.
You got Sean Lee's coming back. I mean, this is a much better front seven.
They took a chance on Gregory. I think that looks like it's working out. DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, this was an absolutely depleted group 2 years ago, and Jerry Jones deserves credit, along with Stephen Jones, for rebuilding it pretty quickly with some exciting young players. The Cowboys took a chance on a couple of guys in the draft that I think it's gonna pan out for them. I like it.
That's very optimistic about the Cowboys. I know we've been a little down on the Cowboys in this room.
Well, we didn't talk about they just lost their top cornerback.
Right, the secondary's bad. I mean, I was going to ask, can they handle success? That's part of my, reasoning with the Cowboys is just I've seen it so long over the Jerry Jones era that they are generally a mediocre franchise that gets a little too full of themselves and doesn't stay good for long.
Well, let me play devil's advocate.
So that's why I'm just expecting them to fall back.
Let me play devil's advocate. Didn't they prove to be the mentally toughest team in the league last year? They went undefeated on the road, and they were always winning games when their backs
fair.
against
And
the wall.
I think it's Garrett. It's not the other coaches of the past. When you're right, they'd have a good season and then crumble. I like what Garrett is, to be honest, much more than a couple years ago.
He's a piece of vanilla toast.
I think he's seen that way, but you know what? You have to give him credit for what happened last season.
Vanilla toast.
All right, let's talk.
Market that.
Let's move on and talk a little bit about the NFC North. And Mark, we'll start with you. You're going to talk about one of the darlings of the preseason analysts.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Vikings, for a lot of good reasons, they went out and aggressively added talent on offense. I think they had no passing game a couple years ago. And now you have Adrian Peterson back, and you've got all these weapons. Charles Johnson's growing up. You've got a bunch going on. Mike Wallace. But are we anointing
Charles
Teddy?
Johnson
is growing up. I mean, you sound like a proud father.
I am a proud father. I remember when we were making fun of Charles Johnson on
and
draft
now
day
look at him now, a
years ago.
superstar in the NFL.
Norv Turner called him the best receiver on the roster at the end of last season, and I trust Norv Turner's judgment.
Don't ever say one mildly negative thing about a player that Mark likes that turns out to be halfway good.
TD's in my
Watch
ear.
out.
TD's saying, get to the question. Are we anointing, though, Teddy Bridgewater too soon to be able to do something with all this stew of talent?
No, we're not anointing him too soon. You said you trust Norv Turner. Mm-hmm. He and Mike Zimmer, they have that Cheshire Cat smile on their face because they know this guy is a legit franchise quarterback, or he's going to develop into that. There's nothing we've seen from him that we don't like, really. I love his touch on the ball. He's got great pocket presence. He's now got much better weapons. This guy was supposed to have Peterson, Rudolph, Greg Jennings last year.
Could have a big year.
Now, he was throwing to Charles Johnson, Jarius Wright, and Chase Ford at the end of the year. He's going to have real weapons this year.
And he's a guy who wins so much before the snap and with his mental game that's something you can really improve a lot from year 1 to year 2. I say we're not anointing him too soon because all he has to do is be Andy Dalton or Alex Smith right now for them to win, and I think he can be better than that.
I agree. That feels like a 10-win team if Bridgewater is competent. Woo! He seems like well on the way to competence, and even beyond that, potentially. Wes, your turn.
Can Matthew Stafford recapture 2011 form? Remember, this is a guy who had 41 touchdowns and over 5,000 passing yards, and he has regressed since then. Is he consistent enough to take advantage of Calvin Johnson, Golden Tate, Eric Ebron, and Amir Abdullah, who this offense is loaded with weapons?
I feel like he's one of the quarterbacks that I trust the least, and I find most frustrating to watch on Game Pass because what you get from 1 week is not the same the next. He's been in the league since 2009. So if we're going to look at a guy like Andy Dalton and say he can't change, so why are we so sure that just because the talent around him increases, that Stafford as a quarterback is going to change?
We have seen Stafford do it, though.
Well, we haven't seen him put up
maybe when everything else around him is perfect. I 100% agree with everything that Mark says. I think he is who he is right now. Now, if the protection's way better and the run game's way better and he has all those talents, they're going to make him look better. Yeah. But he's not going to be consistent.
My feeling on Stafford is that the Lions are in a little bit of a tricky place because I don't think he'll ever become like an A-level quarterback, and I think he's better than a C-level quarterback. He's right at like B. And
he's
maybe
at the Eli Manning Flacco level though, and they won.
If you can get the right team around him, maybe something clicks. But we don't know what he can do.
He can get hot for a month.
Sure, he could. But do we trust that to happen? That's not the first guy I'd say. It's going to be Stafford.
And you don't worry about his durability anymore. He's been on the field constantly after those first couple of years. Next up, my turn. The old Zeuser. We'll talk about the Packers. Are they going to
constant branding with Dan?
That's what you got to do. Can the Packers?
Theme song.
That's two. I like it.
Part of his contract now, we have to play "Get Your Dan Hanzus" every single show.
I like it.
Can the Packers finally secure home field advantage in the NFC? Because let's face it, they would not have blown that game in January if they were at Lambeau. I knew week one they played at Seattle. When they lost that game, you knew they were in a bad spot and it could come back to haunt them. Sure enough, they lose the game, the NFC title game at Seattle. Can they get out of the what do they call that in racing? The blocks. Nailed it.
Blocks.
Faster. They've started 1-2 the past 3 seasons.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. They started 1-2 the past 3 seasons. Get out of the blocks fast. Get that number 1 seed, and then take care of business in the playoffs and get back to the Super Bowl because Aaron Rodgers doesn't have too much time left. Well, he does, but this is him at his absolute peak, and this team is loaded, as we know, even without Jordy Nelson.
Massive preamble to your question.
Yeah.
I enjoyed all of it.
Unlike yours.
Listen,
Okay,
out of
go
the
ahead.
gates, Jordy Nelson's on the field. It's going to be tougher than it was a year ago. The other problem I had with Green Bay coming out with the best record in the NFC, that division was cream puff central for a while. We just talked about the Lions and the Vikings as potential playoff teams. We'd be surprised if they both didn't push for the playoffs.
Tough out of division schedule too, and they're kind of a team like the Patriots that start slow. They're not always a very consistent regular season team. The year they won the Super Bowl, they certainly weren't.
This is why I think the Nelson injury is so hurtful, because it puts in perspective last year's loss. That was your opportunity. Mm-hmm. You blew it. Your team's not the same this year. One of your best players is gone. You might not ever get that opportunity again.
You know, Mark, I didn't give you a hard time during your obligatory Charles Johnson hero worship segment.
I knew we were going to come back to my preamble comment.
I like this.
Go for it.
Sessler heat.
Go for it. No, I welcome it.
Sign me up for
Greg,
season
you're
2.
up. No, I love Mark. He got me a sandwich.
My question is about the Chicago Bears, one that I ask every morning when I wake up. Why does everyone have so much faith in John Fox? Let's put old Foxy in there. Let's put old Foxy. Everything will be fine now. They'll be more competent. Like, why? I don't know.
Doesn't he have a history of turning teams around only to fall short in the playoffs?
Well, I think he'll make a great team good, and he'll make a bad team good.
Wait.
I think
you're never going to get great with him.
I think he's going to take a bad
put.
team and maybe they'll be worse. Look at that. Look at the roster. I don't really believe in Adam Gase to turn the offense around. I think this could be the worst team in the NFL.
This is this year's Titans. The Bears don't exist to me until they cut Jay Cutler.
Wow.
They're a tough watch. It's hard to get excited about them.
I don't understand. John Fox gets a lot of hate around these parts, and I know he got
mostly from Greg
outclassed in the Super Bowl against the Seahawks. But yes, he took a Jake Delhomme team to the Super Bowl a while back.
Like a decade plus ago.
He took a Tim Tebow team
and he also
to the
took
playoffs
a Panthers team to a
and won a
2-14
playoff
record.
game.
It happens.
No, well, listen, you stick
Jimmy
any
Clausen
team with
took
Jimmy
him to a
Clausen, and that's
2-14
not fair. And then, the Peyton Manning teams are always competitive, obviously, with him there. Not going to give him too much credit for that. But this guy there are way worse coaches than John
You're
Fox.
right.
I have a big theory on coaches. 6 or 7 matter to the good. It could be 4 or 5 in a given year. It could be 7. 6 or 7 matter because they're terrible and to the bad. And John Fox, to me, is not in either one of those groups. He just doesn't matter. He's going to get you the record that your roster gets you, and that roster is terrible.
I think it's telling that Elway, who I think we can trust at this point, has built a great team in Denver, looked at Fox and said, he can get me most of the way there, but he can't get me all the way there.
All right. Yeah. All right, let's move on now, Mark, to the NFC South, where you're going to ask a big, important question about the Atlanta Falcons.
So I don't want to judge too much. I'm actually going to ask it about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't want to go too much off of the preseason.
Wow, this heat.
But no. That was such a simple correction. Let's get back on course. We're going to Tampa. Listen. You look at the last game against the Browns, and it's one game and it's preseason, but the line, which wrecked 2 quarterbacks last season. Last year was we're excited about Josh McCown, remember? And we are excited about Mike Glennon. They're both played because neither could stay healthy behind that line. Now you're putting a rookie out there behind what looks like equally a shambles. Are you worried?
I thought
16 games.
Yes.
I thought that might have been hyperbole, our last podcast, when you explained how Cleveland's defensive line destroyed. Desmond Bryant, as Mark would say, fashioned a multicolored clown suit for Ali Marpet. He blew him up, pushed him back into the quarterback. Then he had Marpet so scared that he had a penalty, and then he sacked him in the very next play. I mean, that's as much as you can dominate an offensive line.
I brought this up on our NFL Now thing last week. We're going to be part of this NFL Now Sunday Blitz, apparently. You guys can watch every Sunday. Just throwing a plug in there. live. And
Go
I said,
for it.
well, the offensive line's a problem. And Jamie Dukes said, well, no, they've addressed it. They drafted Donovan Smith. He's going to be their
I heard
right
Jamie Dukes saying the same thing in the huddle one day, and I thought that was crazy.
Okay, yeah, there's no way the guy from Hobart might not work out. Donovan Smith, who, by the way, is already hurt, and they're missing both tackles.
Rookie offensive linemen struggle like rookie cornerbacks struggle.
Exactly. So just because they drafted a couple guys doesn't mean it's solved.
Wes, your question.
Let's go to the Falcons.
Okay.
I'm going to take them.
You know what? I made a mistake. I apologize.
You don't even have to apologize.
Okay.
In my mind, you are pretty much the quintessential host.
Oh, wow. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Can I get my music again?
Why just pretty much?
Are we killing time here? What's going on? I thought we were
So
high clock.
the Mike Smith era, the vestige of the Mike Smith era is that they've had the worst offensive line and one of the worst defensive lines in the NFL. Are they still inept on both sides of the ball in the trenches? Because Gregg's got them winning the division. I don't think they win the division if Matt Ryan's being pressured all the time and if they can't stop the run.
I don't feel good about this prediction. I don't really like any of these teams. They're counting on Kyle Shanahan's scheme to solve the line, which is asking a lot because the talent's not any better. They didn't invest anything in it.
I do trust Dan Quinn, though, with the defense to bring in a scheme that the players say they love it, and it sounds like they feel like they can bring more pressure. Now, we heard that all last summer, so we got to see it.
The line could be better. They brought in Vic Beasley. If he works out, you signed... Who did they sign? Claiborne and Brooks Reed.
Claiborne and Babineau have been putting heat on.
O'Brien Schofield. It's like at least they have more people there.
They brought in a bunch of guys who have averaged 2 sacks per season in their career.
They can't be worse than last season. It was unbelievable how untough they were after you had to write 4 articles about how tough they're going to be based on Hard Knocks.
They sold that real hard.
I think the getting rid of Mike Smith factor is the ticket I'm riding to them winning the division. I think that's a huge plus.
I will keep things simple with the back-to-back defending champion NFC South Carolina Panthers. Will Cam Newton be doomed once again by a suspect supporting cast on offense? This time it's not all the front office's fault or salary cap issues or what have you. They lost Kelvin Benjamin, obviously the ACL tear. We don't know what we're going to get from Devin Funchess. I know we're big on Jonathan Stewart, and Greg Olson's a nice player. But is there enough there, or is once again Cam Newton going into a fight with a pea shooter when he needs a bigger caliber gun?
Wow, that word just jumped into your head. You weren't sure it was going to be there.
Woo!
That's great. I think he has the worst supporting cast, arguably, of any quarterback in the league if you count offensive line, skill position talent, and offensive coordinator. I don't know if there's any team that's any worse. Browns are in the mix. I hate to say.
No, I mean it's skill position wise, sure.
If Mike Shula,
the
Browns have an offensive line though. The Cam Newton doesn't really have anything.
If Mike Shula disappeared, by the way, if I was an investigator, I would look into Gregg's whereabouts. I'd check the cell phone towers where they're pinging off his phone. I'd see
like Adnod.
Wes has got a stable of boys. I got the dungeon of
of Doom.
First thing I go, Gregg, what were you doing the night of Mike Shula's disappearance?
You know what I am? I'm a Cam Newton believer that doesn't like him being saddled with this lousy.
Being saddled with a roster full of number 5 receivers.
Well, I think when you lose Kelvin Benjamin, the stock on that whole offense went down a ton. Dan, I believe you listed Devin Funchess as your Rookie of the Year pick.
You did.
Yeah. You must
That's
believe in
quite
some
the leap
degree.
of faith.
It was a leap of faith, and honestly, probably could have put a little more thought into it.
What have you seen? What do you like about it?
I like Funchess.
However, it makes sense when you think about it. Let's say I broke it down in my head. Let's say Cam Newton throws about 20 touchdowns this year, right? Greg Olson catches 8 if he stays healthy. Someone's going to have to catch 7 or 8 touchdowns.
What if Funchess stinks? He was one of the most polarizing players in the draft.
It makes
A
sense.
lot of guys didn't think he'd be good at all.
And I'll say that, and I've said on this podcast before, my knowledge of these college guys comes once you get to the NFL. Maybe he's not that good. I'm not even sure. But I know they invested a high draft pick in him, and he's going to have an immediate role in that offense. I'm rolling the dice with my pick.
A lot of my problem with the Panthers is not everyone around Cam Newton, but very often Cam Newton himself.
Right, and he's not good enough to make up for this bad roster. I'm not trying to say he needs to be a top 5 quarterback he's not close to that right now.
Greg, you're up.
Drew Brees is, but how close is he? Is he in decline or not? To me, that's the question because the defense already looks like they have big problems. Drew Brees needs to be as good as he's ever been for them to be good.
I thought he was in decline last year, but we also thought, Tom Brady was in decline going into last season too, and he's Super Bowl MVP. I think these things can be reversed.
I think also we've talked about this, ad nauseum, but They've reshaped the way the team's going to do it this season. It's not just Breeze airing it out nonstop.
Well, that's easy to say until you give up 30 points a game. P.J. Williams, we just learned, is out for the season, cornerback they drafted. Their best cornerback, Keenan Lewis, is out for 4 to 6 weeks with a hip surgery. I mean,
Jarris Bird has not seen the field and might be on PUP.
Jarris Bird might not play.
There he is, Well, then that changes everything. But let's say the defense is even midway, right? Middle of the pack, and they're able to do what they want. They're putting Breeze in a better situation because we've heard from Ian Rappaport 2 years in a row that the Saints themselves think that Breeze is nearing the end, and they've been looking for other quarterbacks. So I think they know better than anyone.
I believe the Saints are in a tough spot. I don't think they have a really well-balanced team, and I think Breeze has entered the 30 touchdown, 20 interception, 86 passer rating period of his career, which will go for a couple of years, which is certainly fine in a guy you could still build a team around, but I don't think he's good enough anymore at that level to take a bad team to the playoffs.
You know what, the last 7 or 8 minutes have raised another question with me. Is the NFC South now the worst division in football?
What do you mean now?
I would say the AFC
They were last year.
I would have said the AFC South still.
No, the AFC South had the Colts.
I know they had one team, but they had 3 garbage.
Didn't the division winner go 8-7-1 last year or something?
All right, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, at least the South had an AFC Championship club in it.
All right,
whipping up on those other.
Sully's going to replace me the rest of the show.
No, Greg, you tried. It was good. I like your haircut. Finally, let's move on to the NFC West, a division really that seems pretty interesting with a lot of teams to get into, and we'll start with Mark. You're going to talk about the Cards.
Well, I got the Cardinals, and I think for me, I've automatically kind of just plugged them in as a wild card team all offseason. I love Bruce Arians, and I don't see a team with a major gaping issue that would prevent that from happening. The question for me is, are we going to get pre-injury Carson Palmer, the guy that went, 15-3 over his last so-and-so starts? He's been fantastic for that team. Are we going to get him, or are we going to get a much older, coming off an injury Carson Palmer?
Sounds weird to say, but he's like the Kelvin Benjamin of quarterbacks, where he's not one of the top 5 at his position, but he's one of the most valuable to his team. Because the Cardinals without Carson Palmer are not a playoff team.
And I saw it last year.
I think the preseason can't tell you whether he's going to have a good season or not, but it can tell you he is throwing the ball well. I mean, he threw 3 or 4 beautiful throws in their second preseason game. So he's healthy enough to play. To me, he's a boomer bust guy. I mean he could have a Pro Bowl season, or he could be pretty lousy if the protection's bad.
He'll be able to spin it when he's 60 years old. I don't doubt that. Yeah. But can he move anymore? And listen, he should have the same doubts that we have with Sam Bradford, 2 ACL reconstructions. Can he hold up over 7
The word
weeks?
out of Cardinals all offseason is that he's moving better than he did before the injury. And whereas his previous ACL tear was like a grade 4, this was the easiest one.
I mean, I'm more worried. I'm actually not that worried about Palmer. I'm more worried about his protection because he needs.
Sure, that's the issue.
And the defense. It's like Lamar.
Why are you so worried about the
Lamar
defense?
Woodley and Frosty Rucker and Kevin Minter and this defense is pretty
and Toddy
bad
Bowles
on
ain't
paper.
there anymore.
Hold on, we're talking about a team who started a 34-year-old Larry Foote last year and still beat everyone's expectations.
Well, they've not changed the scheme at all, which is one good thing. And they found a way that over and over that defense finds a way to overcome
I think their defense
injuries.
is better this year.
Do we have any concerns about Todd Bowles not being there anymore? He was a major part of that defense, obviously.
No.
Well,
The new guy, whatever his name
James
is.
Betcher?
Yeah. Bruce Arians loves that guy.
Arians said it's the same scheme, and we've rolled right through it with no issue.
You're going to miss Todd Bowles.
The Jets hiring Todd Bowles immediately made me think less of him, that he couldn't be that big a factor.
Whatever. Rex Ryan stuck it to Brady all the time. You just know what they're doing on D. What was that, TD? You had something?
Oh, we're going on to Seahawks next, right?
Yeah, we are.
Who has that question for us?
I got it.
Oh, I got one serious question now.
Okay, TD.
All right,
good to know.
What's going to be the status of Ciara and Russell Wilson's relationship? Because I think that's a huge.
Don't care.
Does it survive the year? No, it's not going to survive.
Yeah, they'll break up.
I mean, it's not real. It's all done for Russell Wilson to appear human, which he clearly is not. So they'll take it as far as it goes, and if there's too much PR backlash, which I think there already is, people are kind of seeing through it, they'll mutually write up a press release and announce that the union is over.
It's about as real as the sandwich Sessler gave to Hanzus. That's just all Hollywood.
Well, especially at this point. I wouldn't eat that.
All right, Wes, your Seahawks question. Is this also about a pop star?
No, back to football.
Yes. Whoa!
Jimmy Graham, one of the biggest enigmas in the NFL. I mean, when he's fully healthy, one of the most unstoppable players, one of the most unstoppable offensive forces in the league. When he's not fully healthy, he disappears for months at a time. Can Russell Wilson bring out the unstoppable Jimmy Graham?
Isn't it more about can Jimmy Graham stay healthy? Because we've talked about once Jimmy Graham gets hurt, he's one of those guys that does not play through an injury well. And maybe he's just not built for this type of this gig.
It's a fair question. My thinking was more along the lines of whenever Russell Wilson is a big receiver, and we saw this when he first came into the league, and he would throw it up to Sidney Rice really accurately down the field and let Sidney Rice's catch radius take care of business. Chris Matthews in the Super Bowl last year, I think Jimmy Graham is a godsend for Russell Wilson. They match up so well together.
I agree. My answer would be yes, because Russell Wilson is awesome at throwing between the seams. I mean, he's got to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league at doing that, and Jimmy Graham is right there for him.
Yeah, I see no reason to doubt it. I mean, again, forget the preseason, but looking at the last game they had, they were just not on the same page. It might take a month for them to kind of get that chemistry. Russell Wilson had like 25 yards passing at the end of that half. And Jimmy Graham couldn't help.
I don't think the Seahawks are running their offense.
No, and that's fair, but it's just that even when the regular season comes, if they haven't run the real offense and they're finally going to start to do it, just like an offensive line, Graham and Russell are going to need a little bit of time.
All right, my turn. Have we been too quick to write off the San Francisco 49ers? Historic exodus, of course, a lot of top-tier talent. But there are still some pieces in place, and I think we talked about this on Monday. How do you not get a little bit excited about Navarro Bowman not just being healthy, but the same guy before knee surgery based on what we've seen in the preseason? And there are some guys, a couple of years ago, Colin Kaepernick was a guy we saw as maybe a top 10 quarterback in the league. He's still, 26, 27 years old. You have Vernon Davis. You have Torrey Smith there now. There are some guys there. Jared Hayne is there running through the tackles. Have we been too quick to say, oh, this is now a 5-win team?
No, they're a 5-win team. They've got major issues. Look at their offensive line. It's a disaster area.
It's a problem.
I'm not convinced that Colin Kaepernick's going to have a good year. Nothing I've seen from him suggests that he's learned how to be a touch passer.
Jeep Christ is their offensive coordinator, so they lost a lot of coaching talent. That's a concern. But my answer to you is yes, I think we've been too quick to write them off. I think they could be a 7 or 8 win type of team that's in the mix and could surprise some teams.
That's writing them off because 7 or 8 wins isn't a playoff team.
Well, let me just make it clear. I'm with Greg because I see people looking at them as a laughing stock where I think they could be competitive.
It wouldn't shock me if they were. It wouldn't totally stun me if they're 9-7 or 10-6 and they sneak into the playoffs.
That would stun me.
That's a little rich for me, but I think you're coming from. We were saying, oh, they're going to be 3-13. They're an absolute train wreck. Where them going 8-8. 8-8 teams are really a lot of times just 5-11 teams in disguise where everything went right. So if that happened, it wouldn't be that surprising to me.
All right, finally, Greg.
Well, we wrap up with the most exciting team in the league.
Yeah, boys.
St. Louis Rams. What a defense this is going to be. But will they be so good? All for naught because the offense is bad. And will Gregg Williams then murder Frank Signetti, PI, because of it? And if it happens, who's going to solve the case?
Well, that's a major problem. That's a major problem. I didn't think of that.
Sessler will solve it.
Well, no, you need Ted Wells.
Super sleuth.
NFL gumshoe.
I mean, this is Gregg Williams' chance to get back into the NFL limelight if Signetti doesn't blow it.
Yeah, we really need a Gregg Williams redemption story in the NFL.
Well, he's really carrying the torch for the Triple G Greggs in the NFL, so I've always been.
Well, haven't we heard from if the Seahawks and everyone else aren't showing their offense, and neither the Rams? Haven't we heard all offseason from Rams players that this offense is much more creative, that guys are getting more opportunities?
I hope so. That's what I'm banking.
Why are we believing that Kenny Britt and Trey Watts are going to lead this team to
Tavon Austin?
Come on. Trey Watts isn't even the best Trey in that backfield.
He might be starting week 1.
And if Todd Gurley's healthy, all bets are off. They could be
Didn't Jeff Fisher just say, just get us to 7-9 and let's go to Los Angeles?
That's all Jeff wants. Jeff wants to be sitting in on the show during the offseason, just hamming it up with that big old stash.
You guys aren't really buying into the murderous inclinations there.
I think it's more likely you murder Mike Shula.
Wait, this is a coach who once said that if you cut off the head, the offense will fall?
Hold on.
Yes.
Shadowy league figure is coming upstairs.
Look, that's on tape. He said it.
It's by the way, it's funny you bring up Frank Signetti because I do actually have a follow-up question about the Rams, and it's related. Let's bring that up, TV, on the board. Can Detective Frank Signetti clean up the streets of St. Louis, overcome corruption within his own department, and find a way to relate to his headstrong teenage daughter from a previous relationship?
I don't know. St. Louis has been through some ups and downs. We got a lot of cleaning up to do. The daughter part, always tricky. A lot of moving parts there.
He could have saved True Detective Season 2, Frank Signetti, if he was a character.
Him and Gregg Williams. How about that as a pair?
But you can, in anything, you could talk about it in our careers as well. sometimes middle management or other figures get in the way of what you want. He deals with that with the St. Louis PD. And then he's got his daughter, Gloria, who's a really nice girl, sweet girl, but she's got the old man's stubborn ways.
I see a happy ending.
Headstrong girl.
All right, now.
That's what I know about Gloria.
Now it's time. And it's a shame that marriage didn't work out because Frank and Judy, I thought this was last.
You got real deep in.
There's still a kernel of love between them. You see that. And the thing I like about Signetti, it's like, okay, she's not living with him.
Yes.
But he's still a good father.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're not, it doesn't mean that you can't be a good father and love your daughter.
Signetti goes 10 seasons, though. The wife, the comeback with the wife thing, that is season 5 material. You don't want to go too
Frank, are you married to me or your career? I mean, that was a common refrain.
I've heard that before.
All right, prediction time now for the NFC. We will, if Frank Signetti ever actually heard this podcast, he'd be like, what world is going, where am I?
MJD might be right.
All right, so let's go through our NFC predictions one by one. Mark, we'll start with you. Give us your 4 division winners, your 2 wild cards.
All right, division winners. I go Seahawks out of the West, Packers out of the North. I got the Eagles out of the East, the Saints out of the South, and my 2 wild card teams are the Detroit Lions, and I do believe in them, the Arizona Cardinals.
This is basically the around the NFL chalk. Not chalk, but these are our consensus picks as well, I believe. Mark, you are our consensus.
Well,
Old Mark
I'm not
Consensus
expecting
Sessler.
too many different answers from the group. Let's see.
No.
Let's see. Wes, your turn.
They should keep Mark's list up there. It's the exact same one I have.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Well, there you go.
Yeah, it's the exact same list.
Wow. Oh, my God. In the same order,
That's
too.
good.
Lions.
Well, I know Greg hates when people put the same playoff teams in year after year.
Hey, by the way, your predictions have always stunk, so why not mix it
I
up
should
a
just
little?
make up that the Rams are going to be good so I can do something new. Look, teams are good, so you make them. You predict that they're going to be good.
So you have Seahawks, Eagles. No, you have Eagles as a 2 seed. Mark doesn't have that.
I mean, we both have
No,
them.
those are just the division winners. I have the same exact line.
I do have them as a 2 seed, though.
Yeah,
So that's a little different.
that's different. That's a big difference. All right, Wes, nice choices. Mark, also nice choices. Let's take a look at my choices. I have the Seahawks, again, with the number 1 seed for the 3rd straight year. I have the Packers at number 2. The Eagles, I think we're all high on the Eagles, it seems, winning their division with a really nice record. I have the Saints taking care of business in a bad, crappy division. And then the Lions and Vikings, I see them both as double-digit win teams. I think the Lions maybe even could sneak out 11. I'm in on the Lions.
No
so those are
Dallas
my
for
picks.
anyone so far.
And the
Yeah,
Lions
I'm
are
not surprised about
in
that.
for all 3 teams, so your big change is the Vikings get in instead of the Cardinals.
I'm a little down on the Cardinals, as we talked about on Monday's show. Greg, your picks.
My picks, I have the same top 2 teams. I have the Seahawks and the Packers in that order. The Eagles winning the NFC East. I have the Falcons getting out of the NFC South, the Vikings, and then the Rams as my 6th.
There he is.
16.
I like it, Greg.
My theory here, Wes, is that none of us know anything anyway. There's no way to know. And so you kind of look for teams that would logically be like a team that fills a gap in a bad division.
Look,
like
I know what
Matt
your thinking
Ryan,
is. I
Matt
think
Ryan.
it's very bold to put one of the worst teams in football in the playoffs.
Who's
Greg,
that?
The Rams.
Oh, stop.
Greg, you've just talked about the
They won
defensive-
7 games with Austin Davis and your grandmother.
They won like
I
6
don't
games.
know.
Is Nick Foles better than Austin Davis?
Yes.
You've just
Are we
talked
sure?
about the defensive coordinator, offing the offensive
Well,
play caller.
that would be a distraction if that happens.
They overcome that.
They'd have to overcome that. I said it could happen if Signetti doesn't pull his weight.
I don't think you should stop with the Rams. I think you should put the Browns and
Oh,
the Titans in
stop.
the AFC playoffs.
All right. I knew this was going to go down a bad road when Greg said to Wes, none of us know anything. The mailman doesn't like to be told he doesn't know anything. The mailman knows everything.
Not for
No, I agree that preseason is prime season for you take a lot of conclusions out of stuff that you can't. So in that sense, he's right. But
Cliff Clavin
we
doesn't like being
but
told
we
he
can
doesn't know
evaluate rosters and say the Rams roster just isn't very strong.
I like the defense.
All right. Let's get out of here. I'm going to have some of this sandwich right now.
You should.
Congealed egg.
It's going to be a little cold. Can you get sick from cold eggs?
You could get sick from eggs in general.
Ooh, the avocado looks good.
It looks
Good.
pretty tasty.
Mark, thank you. And Trent
welcome.
Richardson, thank you for not being able to hit a hole.
That was exciting. Watching Dan eat.
That's good.
All right.
Let's wrap this thing up.
All right,
baby.
that's it. Let's get out of here. This is, wait, let me swallow.
Debts paid.
When are you going to get the water for us, TD? This is Dan Hanzus signing off for The Quiet Storm. The mailman, the boss, TD, and everybody else behind the glass. We will be back on Friday with our AFC preview, and then we roll into the big week. So get excited. The Around the NFL podcast is over.